Alright y'all, what's happening? Welcome back to the Ozark Adventure. So, I was planning on going fishing today, but ended up getting rained out. That's how it is sometimes. But I've been getting a lot of people ask me about wading the creek. It's one of my favorite things to do during the summer, especially when it gets hot. And here in the Ozarks, it gets hot and it gets humid during the summer. So one of the ways I like to combat that and still catch some fish is actually go down, wade the creek. There is a lot of creeks, most creeks actually, creeks, streams, rivers, whatever. A lot of people don't know. Most of them you can wade, even the ones that are deeper and floatable. Have at least stretches that are wadeable and can catch a lot of fish in those stretches. So I figured, I'd kind of go over how I set up to get ready to go wade a creek, kind of the equipment I take with me and things like that. But first, I thought maybe I'd kind of give you a little tour of the Ozark Adventure office where things go down. So let's take a look at this. All right, so this is the office here. So you've got the computer. That's where we do all our editing. Got camera, GoPro equipment there. Got my knife set that I still need to get hung up. Got a little decoration. So I've got my We the People. That was actually made for me by a customer of mine. It's pretty badass. I love that. Got my little eat, sleep fish. That lights up. Pretty cool. My mounted bass, one of the biggest bass I've ever caught, which right about 6 pounds, 20.5 inches long. Pretty cool because I don't bass fish a lot. My wishing I was fishing. Got that down at Gaston Resort on the White River just earlier this year. It's my little trash can. I know it doesn't look like it fits in the room with all the outdoor stuff, fishing equipment, but I actually rescued that. It was floating down the river the other day, and we picked it up, and now it's my trash can, so I kind of felt like it fit in. And obviously got my fishing racks. This is just random outdoor equipment. All my fishing bags, camping stuff, a little camping charcoal, lantern, outdoor cooking equipment, bunch of different stuff. Two Bubba Blades, a little bit of flex for y'all, some ammo, all my a bunch of my fishing equipment, what's not out in the garage in the boat, and probably in the Jeep, extra line, all that kind of stuff, and where we keep, clothes, life jackets. So, yeah. So they have it, just a quick little tour of the office. Now let's check out how I get set up to wade the creek. Alright folks, let's get you set up to wade the creek. What are you going to need? First thing you're going to need, backpack. You may not necessarily need to start out with a backpack. I actually just started out with a, kind of like a fanny pack type bag that goes over my shoulder. But whatever you get, you want to make sure that it has pockets on the sides, both sides, and you'll find out why here in a little bit. Second thing you're going to need for wading the creek is a dry bag. This is an Ozark Trail. It's about a 20 liter, I don't know, it's big, but how you want to determine the size of your dry bag is you want your dry bag to be about the same size as your backpack here. So you want a dry bag the same size as the backpack. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take this dry bag, you're going to shove it down inside the backpack like a liner. So let me get this kind of zipped up a little bit here, make it a little easier to handle. So now the dry bag is actually inside the backpack like a liner. So now you can take your tackle, it fits a pretty big box. Take that, slide that down in there. I can actually fit up to 3 boxes that size in this bag. I do that on rare occasions because it gets quite heavy when you pack that much gear on your back. We're talking, 40, 50 pounds once you get 3 boxes fully loaded with lures, weights, terminal tie, all that stuff in there. So my suggestion, try to figure out what you want to go for. Get everything down to 1 box and take 1 box with you. Not only is it going to be lighter, but we've got some other things that we're going to put in here. So we're going to need a little extra room. So just slide that down inside the bag, roll the bag up, cinch it tight. I've actually even got a separate bag that I use for my camera equipment. So I will put the camera equipment in the second bag, cinch it up, put it inside this dry bag, cinch this one up. That way the camera equipment is double protected. Now that you have your the tackle figured out that you want to take, you've got it inside your dry bag, it's all secure. Next thing you're going to need, got to figure out what rods you're going to take. So I essentially have 4 different rods that I will take creek fishing. Majority of the time I am pan fishing, but being the creek, I also like, one of my favorite lures is the Strike King Bitsy Minnow little crankbaits. Those will catch some bigger fish in the creeks. I've caught 2-3 pound bass on those lures. Also, like the smaller spinner baits. So the rod that I take with me the majority of the time is going to be a 6-foot light action rod. I like going with the light action instead of the ultralight the majority of the time because, like I said, right now I've even got a little Roadrunner head on here. With that Roadrunner head and a minnow body, you've got the opportunity to catch some bigger fish. So I've got a light action. It is a 500 series reel, but I've got it strung out with 6-pound Mr. Crappie. So the light action gives me that extra backbone that I need in case I do hook into a bigger fish. But I can still, with this light line, I can still throw a lighter lure and catch those panfish. And this way it really ensures that you're getting the most action that you can out on the creek, because you're really hitting the panfish and the bass both at the same time. So it's really just a great rod to take. I think it's probably been the best option I've had over the years is 6-foot light action. Now, sometimes I really don't care what the bass are doing. I get that way, I like my panfish. So when I get that way, I will take just my 6-foot ultralight. Love this because super quick tip, got a lot of bend. Man, it's just a really fun rod to fish with, and with that, this has a super fast tip on it. So I mean, you can just throw an ultralight lure a long way with it. This is actually a Lures Pro brand rod and reel combo. Got it down at Bud's Bait, I think, for like 25 bucks. So holler my man Ray down at Bud's, he'll hook you up with one. Just a super great rod. I've got this one strung up with Mr. Crappie High Vis again, but this is actually the 4-pound. I actually wouldn't mind finding some 2-pound line to put on it. I just don't think Mr. Crappie makes a High Vis in 2-pound. And I like my High Vis, so I'm probably just going to stick with this. But it's a great rod for just throwing those light lures and catching some panfish out on the creek. Now, every once in a while, I do get the itch to completely skip the panfish and just go for bass. I usually hit some of the bigger creeks around whenever I'm going to do that, and whenever I do that, if I'm going to fish for bass, I want to catch a big one, obviously. So, if I'm going to catch bigger fish, gotta beef up the gear. So I actually take 2 rods when I go bass fishing on the creek,
and I'm going to show you how I do that. But let me show you what rods I take first. First one I'm going to take is going to be a 7-foot medium action with about a 1500 series reel on it. I've got this one strung up with 8-pound Berkley Trilene. I like that poundage. Berkley, great line. This essentially is going to be Ned Riggs. That's what I've got on there now from my last Smalley video. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, go check it out. It was pretty cool. A buddy of mine caught his new PB. So this is going to be the first rod that I take. Actually, it's not going to. This is the backup rod, to be honest with you. It's not the one I'm going to start with. It's the one I'm going to go to if fishing gets tough and I'm not catching them the way I like to catch them. So, like I said, 7-foot medium action, fast tip, great for Ned Riggs, throwing Texas rig worms, things like that. So this is going to be our backup rod. And now you're wondering, how do you carry 2 rods at once? Well, remember when I told you to get the bag that's got the pockets on the side? Well, that's one of the reasons you need the pocket on the side. You actually take the rod, slide the rod, the butt end of the rod, down in that pocket, and then this backpack itself actually has straps with buckles on the side. So I can take that strap, wrap it around the rod, buckle it in, now it's secure. I can carry this rod with me. Yeah, it sticks way up in the air, but you got to figure, you're in the middle of the creek. There's really not going to be a bunch of trees up in a bucket. Now, if you got to skirt over to the side, you need to be mindful about where your tip is, because if you get it stuck up in the tree, you can break it off. You know, a lot of bad things are going to happen if you get your tip caught up in the tree. But I find most of the time this is perfectly fine, because like I said, you're in the middle of the creek generally. You don't have a lot of trees hanging around. So that's how you carry a second rod. And like I said, the spare rod that I take is the medium action 7-footer. Now, when I'm going to fish for bass on the creek, the first rod I'm going to grab is going to be my 7-foot medium heavy, because like I said, I'm fishing for bigger bass if I'm going to fish for bass at all. So you need the extra backbone, not to mention we are fishing in a creek. If you've never caught fish in a creek, they just fight harder. I mean, they spend their entire lives fighting the current. So I feel like they're just a little stronger fish. Not only that, whenever you hook into one of these fish, that's the first place it's going to go. Is if there's any current, they're going to go right into it. So once they hit that current, you've not only got to fight the fish, but you've got to fight the fish and the current. So a medium heavy on a creek, even if it looks like a smaller creek, not a bad idea, because if, like I said, if you do hook into a 3-pound bass and he hits some strong current, you're going to be glad that you've got this extra heavy rod and this bait casting reel. Now, let's talk about this reel for a second. This is actually a very high-speed reel. It's an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. And let me tell you why I like this 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. It's because with the current, as you see, I've got the old 6-inch crankbait on there. And yeah, it's the dark one, so it's kind of hard to see in here. But I like these square bills in the creeks because, especially you get one runs down 5-6 feet, that's going to be probably 80% of where you're fishing. 5-6 feet going to be plenty deep. So you get you a square bill that runs 6 feet deep, you're going to be digging bottom on the majority of the creeks where you're going to be fishing, or at least around here. So I like the square bill because I can run into the creek and it's good about bouncing off the rocks. It just doesn't get hung up very often. Very rarely do I ever get a square bill hung up. So you can, even when there's a down tree laying in the creek, you can throw it up in there, bring it back, bounce it off all the limbs. It's going to, once it's past the tree, it's going to get back down to the bottom, dig in the rocks. You know, it's just a great all-around bait for in the creek. So it's probably my favorite way to actually catch them. Do I catch them that way all the time? No, but you got a whole box full of tackle that you're wearing on your back. If they don't catch on the crankbait, you might have to switch over to the chatterbait or whatever. But you want that medium heavy rod and that fast reel, because when you throw this crankbait over into the current, you need to catch up to that current. Not only do you need to catch up to the current, but you need to get ahead of that current in order to get your bait down to the bottom. And if it's not hitting the bottom in that current, you're probably not going to be catching a whole lot of smallies. That's generally where I catch the majority of mine, is just on the edge of the current, or a lot of times if it's a little bit deeper, they're going to be right in that current, because they're going to find a big rock to hide behind and just wait for something to wash down by them so they can hammer on it. So 8-to-1 gear ratio, that way whenever you make that cast, you can get caught up to the current and actually get your lure down to the bottom where you need it to be. So as far as your gear, that pretty well covers it. The only other, there's two more suggestions that I'm going to make, things that I do whenever I go into the creek. Number one, we're going to talk about what you wear. You definitely want to wear something light and something that dries fast. I like the fishing shirts, and as far as shorts, you could wear a swimsuit, that would work. However, I like something with pockets. So I actually went to Academy Sports, got me a pair of Magellan shorts. They're super light, super thin, a quick drying water wicking material. So once you get out of the water, they're not going to stay wet very long. Plus they have pockets. The reason I like the pockets, and they've actually got a zipping pocket on it. So one, that's a good place for me to throw my keys, because I don't have a key fob. Doesn't matter if my keys get wet. I put the keys in that pocket and zip it up. Secondly, if I'm out fishing and say I'm using my light action rod and I've got a plastic jig body on, I don't want to have to take my backpack off every time I've got to change that jig body because fish tear it up. So what I'll do is the one I'm using at the time, I'll take the entire pack out, stick it down in my pocket. That way, whenever a fish tears it up, all I gotta do is reach in my pocket, switch it out real quick, put it back in my pocket. Now I will tell you, if the pocket zips or it velcros, that is best, because I have lost many a pack of jig bodies in a pocket that did not zip, because they are somewhat buoyant. They will just float out of an open pocket. So I do see, if you're going to keep them in your pocket, make sure it's one that velcros. My Magellan shorts, they velcro on the back and they've got the zipper pocket. So I'll put them in one of those two pockets. Or I've even got my Magellan shirt that I use to wade has got a pocket on the front that actually velcros, or there's got a button. So I do suggest having a pocket on you somewhere, and also for pliers. If there's not a way to attach them easily to the bag to where they're reachable, like on an extendable lanyard or whatever. I keep mine in my back pocket so I can just real easy access. So as far as the clothes, and then shoes, I don't have any special wading shoes. I've actually bought some, tried them, they didn't work. So I generally just stick with regular old pair of tennis shoes. But one tip I will give you, when you put your shoes on, make sure you wear socks. Socks is very important when you're wearing your tennis shoes in the creek, and here's why. The tennis shoes are very good, probably better than anything else I've found about keeping larger rocks and stuff out of the shoe. But as you're walking, the smaller gravel, sand will get into the shoe. If you're not wearing socks, it's going to be in between the shoe and your foot, and as you walk, it's just going to rub your foot raw over the course of the day. So by the end of the day, your feet are going to be absolutely miserable if you have not wore socks. And I would even suggest wearing a little bit taller sock instead of the ankle sock. I think it helps keep the sand out even better. So old tennis shoes, and make sure you wear socks, and you'll be just fine. Last tip I'm going to give you whenever you go hit the creek, and this is super important, maybe the most important part of the creek wading. gotta take snacks. So, things that we like to take, snack sticks, cheese sticks. You can actually leave those unrefrigerated for a decent bit of time and they're gonna be okay. So we throw them in the backpack. The sleeves of the peanuts, like for 99 cents at the gas station that are sealed up, take some of those, throw them in the backpack. Granola bars, we love a granola bar. So we will take those. Even some trail mixes is great. But the last thing you want to do is get out there on the creek, be catching fish, and then all of a sudden you're hungry and now you got to go get something to eat. So definitely take some snacks, but besides snacks, you got to stay hydrated. And here's how we're going to do that. So last tip, you want to go down to the store, get yourself one of these double wall vacuum insulated thermoses. These things are awesome. Will keep water cold for 12 hours even if you're out in the sun. So take this thing, put it in the freezer the night before. Get it super chilled. Then whenever you're ready to go, open it up, fill it all the way to the top with ice, then fill it with water. So as you're wading the creek, ice is slowly going to melt, continually giving you more water, plus it's going to stay super cold all day long. We go out and we wade for 5-6 hours at a time in 90, 95, 100 degree heat. That right there is going to make sure that we've got cold water all day long. I've got one for my bag, the wife, she's got one for her bag. That way we make sure that we've got plenty of water, and I guarantee you it is going to stay cold. So that is pretty much it on my tips for wading the creek. If you're wondering where to go wade, my suggestion is to hop on Google Maps. Just find your location. It'll pull you up by your GPS. You can do it on your phone or even on your computer. Hop on Google Maps, find your location, and just start going outward from there in a circle. Once you find a little creek or a stream that's relatively close to you, find a road that it passes under. Once you find that road, zoom in, go to the satellite view, take a look around, see if it looks like there's a place that you can park. If you can park there in Missouri, you are allowed to access that because that is public domain. It's owned by the state, being the bridge. The state owns so much of the land, so as long as you access from the bridge, you can access that waterway up and down as far as it goes, as long as it is a waterway that maintains a constant flow of water 365 days a year. That's the great thing about Missouri, is the creeks are open to the public as long as you access them legally. That means via a bridge, a public access point, or with permission from a landowner. If you would like, I've even gone down to the conservation office and they printed me off that law. I've taken it to Home Depot, had it laminated. I really need to do that again because it is a great thing to keep in your bag just in case you do to run into the landowner that thinks you're trespassing. And a lot of people have moved into the state from out of state. They don't really understand because Missouri is one of the few states in the country, I understand, that has those kind of laws that allow us access to the creeks in this way. So, I appreciate you watching my tips on fishing the creek. I hope you find these helpful. If you did, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you got some tips for me of how you do things a little bit different when you wade the creek, please leave those down in the comments. I would love to hear them. I'm always looking for ways to improve whenever I go hit the creek, so you may do something a little better than I do, and I want to hear about it. So leave it down in the comments. I appreciate you watching. Peace.